Well, hello. Good morning, etc., etc. Hope everyone's doing well. See that I got a couple people here. Don't know if you're able to chat. We've had issues from time to time with the chat, so just drop me a line right here and let me know if you're present, if you're able. But at any rate, or if you can hear me, all that stuff, basically all the stuff. Are you present? Are you able to hear me? Is all this real? You know, the basics of life. Oh my gosh, you all. Let's see here. I'm going to see if Kathy can hear me. Kathy, can you hear me? I'm just going to sing until someone asks me a question. I'm not going to do that. That's not real. Okay. Hey, good morning, etc., and all that. Hi, Lisa. Well, it's been an exciting 24 hours in my life. So before we talk about you asking me questions about theology and all, why don't I share a little bit about what's going on? Hold on, let me adjust myself. There we go. Why don't I share a little bit about what's going on with me? It's a little bit almost like talk radio, isn't it? So Krista, my wife, what day is today? I don't know what anything is anymore. Tuesday. So Sunday night, she was starting to have some pain in her stomach or in her abdomen, I should say. And we thought it was a stomach ache. And she's just not feeling good, it's not feeling good. It's like something's like seizing up on me, and she'd been working all week and all weekend. This is a really busy season for her photography. And she's actually frustrated right now because she's not able to do all the editing she needs to do. But she's just not feeling it right. And so, we thought, okay, well, it must be food poisoning or something. Like no one else was feeling ill. No one else was feeling weird. No symptoms of anything in our house. And so, except for Krista, who's in all this pain. So she goes to bed and she gets up in the middle of the night and she starts throwing up and in a lot of pain. And she's in the bathroom and she can't leave the bathroom. She does that like sleep on the floor of the bathroom thing, which, whatever, you're sleeping on the floor of the bathroom and you're not drunk. I guess even when you're drunk, it's bad, but like just in general, that's not a place you want to be. I will tell you, we have a nice sized bathroom in our new house. We all share it, but there's room for lying down, but that doesn't make it good at all. So she was on the floor of the bathroom and she was going to the bathroom. She was throwing up and it was bad, but we thought it was food poisoning. And she was like, I'm just in a lot of pain. But then we were like, we all ate all the same food, right? Like literally all day. We had spent most of the day together and she had gone off to do some photography sessions, but she hadn't eaten anything. And so she was like, I'm like, is there anything? Did you grab a snack? Anything at all? Because otherwise we've all eaten the same food and we're all fine. She's like, no, I'm fine. I mean, no, that can't be it, right? That can't be it. But she's like so down and out. So I get one of the kids to school in the morning, do some stuff here at the office. I come back around noon with the boy. And so we're all home and she's still in bed. She's now in bed. She's awake. So can you bring me some water? Bring her some water. What's going on? She's not feeling any better. All right. And then she says, I don't think I'm throwing up because of food poisoning. I'm throwing up from the pain. I was like, well, that's not good. So I come downstairs, start up another meeting. It's all meetings. And in the middle of my meeting, she comes downstairs and she lies on the couch. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice that she's hanging out. Like, at least she's down here. We're near each other and all that. And she goes, I've got a friend coming to pick me up. She's taking me to the ER. What? So she says, yeah, I'm going to go to the ER. I go, who's taking you? She tells me. I said, what do you want me to do? So we got to stay here with the kids. I said, oh, okay. And, because of the COVID stuff, like, it's not like I could hang out with her anyway. So her friend literally dropped her off at the ER, like dropped her off, right? Because she couldn't go in with her. So she went to the emergency department. She had her gallbladder out like 3 years ago. And so she went to the same place, the same hospital where the same doctors would be. And in fact, the same doctor checked in on her this morning, which is cool. He's also a parent of kids who go to our school, but We try not to say, hey, you're the guy that did surgery on my wife whenever we pass him, at the school. We try to be cool about it. Play it cool. So anyways, she goes to the ER and they do all these tests and they go based on just before they even did like any of the diagnostic stuff. They were like, or the technical stuff, the CAT scans and stuff. They're like, this looks like appendicitis, but we'll check. They checked. It was appendicitis. And they took it out right away. As you know, if an appendix ruptures, it can kill you or harm you really badly if you don't get all the stuff out. It's filled with like poisonous crap that you don't want anywhere else. Awesome. Great. The perfect thing to explode in your body. So they got it out. And that was last night. And this morning, she and I have messaged a little bit. She's at the hospital and she's probably not going to get out till tonight or tomorrow. And I'm a mess. Like, you can't like probably tell. I haven't been crying. And I cry. I'm a crier, right? But like, I'm like that person who, when the middle of the thing happened, like I was in the middle of a meeting and she was like, I'm going to the emergency department. And I was like, hey guys, can you hold on a second? Like muted the call and like went over and was like, what's going on? And we talked. And then her friend came and picked her up. And then like, I was like, okay. And I came back to the call and unmuted and I was like, hey, so I had to go because I had to go for a second. Krista's going into the emergency room and everyone on the call was like, what's going on? And I was like, well, I don't know. We're going to find out. But they were like, do you need to go? And I was like, I don't need to go because she's gone and the kids are here. So let's have our conversation. Like I'm that guy, which is, I get that that's kind of weird. I mean, I'm sure some people will be like, well, that's just not healthy. And maybe it's not, I don't know. But in the moment, I'm like, all right, well, let's just do the things that we need to do. And she's gone. Like she's on her way. I can't I'm not going to sit around. There's nothing wrong with sitting around, by the way. I just don't know how to do it. So I just worked and then got the kids, fed the kids and got the kids to bed. And right when I got the boys down and then right when I was getting, I think that's right. I think it's a compartmentalizing thing, Lisa. You want me around in an emergency, probably. I mean, here's the deal. I don't know how to do a lot of stuff. Like I'm not very useful. I'm not a very useful person. But I'm calm in it. So I'm not gonna, like you'd love to have one person who actually like, you want to have like a contractor, right? Or like or like an EMT. Those are great people to have, or like you're like a nurse, right? You want to have people like that around. Like you want to have people that know how to do things. I don't know. There's a lot I don't know how to do, but I can be chill. So I stayed chill. I kept my kids calm. Got the call from Krista after dinner or during dinner or something, or the message like, hey, they're going to do the appendectomy right away, right? So I was like, thanks, Leslie. I'll take the compliment today. I need it. And so I just, I sat the kids down. I said, okay, so mommy's at the doctor. They're gonna do a surgery, and they're like, and I was like, but here's the deal. It's a very, very normal surgery. A lot of people have this surgery. It's very common. They're gonna cut 3 little holes in mom and they're gonna pull out her appendix, which needs to go away, and they're gonna throw it away and sew her back up, and then she'll be home tomorrow. And they're like, okay. And the boys are like, okay, well, she's okay. I'm like, she's okay. She's okay. They're like, okay, what's on TV? Right. Cause they're not terrible. I mean, they are terrible people, but like 3-year-olds and 6-year-olds are by and large, sociopaths. It's just part of it. It's okay. It's age appropriate. They were interested in mom's safety on an age appropriate level. And so once I told them she's fine, it'll be okay. They're like, oh, she's fine. It'll be okay. What's on TV? Right. So that's great. The older one was like 9. She's like, and she's had some surgeries. She's like, what's going on? I told her same thing. It's really okay. And she's like, well, is she going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, she's going to be okay. She's like, do you know that? And I was like, and now this is where like, as a dad, like as a parent, I'm pretty similar to how I pastor, like, and friend people. Like, and so there's that space of like, maybe I shouldn't have said it that way. Right. But it is my personality. So she's like, well, do you know for sure she's going to be okay? And I was like, oh, well, no. She's like, you don't? I was like, well, Paige, I could walk out the door and get hit by a car. I mean, I say stuff like this. This is why I'm, check me out. But I'm like, look, Paige, I could go out the door and get hit by a car. We never know for sure of anything, right? And she's like, oh, well, okay. And I'm like, but, so I can't say for sure, but I can tell you that this is a really normal thing that's happening. It's a really common surgery. I said, you had a couple surgeries? She said, are you nervous? I said, well, sure. But I was nervous when you had surgeries, but you were fine. She goes, yeah, those were okay. And you were nervous? I was like, yeah, of course, because I love you and I want you to be okay. But like, I can't guarantee anything. But like, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're going to be okay. Like, she's good. She's in a very good place, and they know what they're doing and everything's fine. And and again, it's very common. And she's like, okay, so then what happens? I'm like, they take this thing out. She should start feeling better and she'll get to come home. Like, it's really kind of a good thing. She was like, oh, okay. And then she was like, so then what are we watching? Right. So we tried to watch The Rocketeer. It's on Disney Plus. I haven't seen it since it came out in the theaters. I literally haven't seen it once since then. And now I think I was enjoying it more than them. It's got like, Jennifer Connelly and Paul Sorvino and Alan Arkin and there was some other good John Polito. I mean, all these people I love. Timothy Dalton, I don't really care about him, but he was in it. It's fine. Not Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton? Yeah, Timothy Dalton. How do I have that name in my head? So anyways, and then the guy, I don't even know the guy who stars in it, but I know Jennifer Connelly, right? So we watched a little bit of it. They were like, there's a lot going on. They were, and all our heads were kind of scattered. So I got them to bed. And then right after the boys were down, I was putting Paige down, and I got a phone call from the nurse. She's like, did the doctor call you? And I was like, no. She's like, oh, well, your wife's fine. She came out of surgery just fine. Everything's good. And she's just resting. She's in recovery. She's a little tired, of course, and she's, groggy, but she's got her phone back in her room. You'll hear from her soon, and probably, I was like, great. She's like, do you have any questions for me? I was like, no. I don't know what I was supposed to ask. Like, you already told me, like, so here's the deal. Is she alive? The answer was already yes. Did the surgery go well? The answer was yes. Do we have a sense of when, like, where she is and what's going to be next? She already told me that. In recovery, back to the room, probably home tomorrow. Those are the things I cared about, right? Are there other things I was supposed to care about? Like, are there other things that I was supposed to be like, oh, well, I have a question about, I don't even know what to make up as a joke question. Someone asked me on Facebook, like, let me know if you need any, like, if you have any questions. And I was like, yeah, well, my wife lost her gallbladder and now her appendix. Are there other garbage, useless organs that she could lose too? Because she's just going to, like, I think she's just kind of doing like, we don't need this. We don't need this. Any vestigial organs, she's out, right? Or any superfluous things. So I basically asked what's next. The person was like, no, I meant like insurance wise. Well, how was I supposed to name an insurance? That's fine. It's a very kind offer. I don't know anything. I want to know, like, is her diet could be restricted, or can we still have carnitas? Or someone made me a peach cobbler. Can Krista have some of the peach cobbler? Because with the gallbladder, there was all sorts of issues. Like, is the appendix the same? Gallbladder is all about digestion. I don't know what the appendix even does besides explode and kill people. So the lady was like, is everything all right? Or do you have any questions? And I was like, no. She's like, you don't? And I was like, well, so she's okay. That's like my question. So she's okay. And yeah. And I'm like, all right. Okay. Thank you. And she's like, thank you. And I think she was like waiting again. I think she was waiting for more from me. I didn't have more. I was like, bloop. And this is when it all set in, right? So once I knew she was okay, about, oh, that's awesome news. She'll eat that cobbler. So right before I got the phone call, I was putting Paige down, and then the thought started to creep in, right? Unless the death rate of an appendectomy is 0.0, right? 0%. Unless it's 0%, then I'm nervous. It's my wife. I love her quite a bit. So I was like really cool and calm and collected. And then like right around, and then I was getting the kids down, and I realized I was about to be alone in the house with the dog, but like kind of like to my own self. And then all of a sudden I was like, I haven't heard from her. I forgot to mention that I'd gotten a call. Like, she called me before the surgery and handed the phone to the physician so I could give verbal consent for the surgery. Cause she had, because she's a woman and doesn't have agency. I'm just kidding. I know literally everyone listening is a woman. I'm just kidding. Because she was on morphine. And she was on morphine, so she wasn't allowed to consent to her own surgery. So she gets me on the phone, and I'm like, which is a really weird conversation, right? Like, do you consent to us taking your wife's appendix out? And I was like, I consent, right? And then they were like, do you consent to us giving her more blood if she needs it? And that's where I draw the line, people. No, I was like, yes, absolutely. Of course, give her, yes. And then I felt like that awkward moment, like, was I supposed to say more? So I was like, well, so this is a weird phone call. I like tried to make a silly joke. I was so nervous. And what's like the right thing to say? Like after you've given someone permission to like cut your spouse open and take body parts out, right? Like what's the next, like what's the Christian way to wrap that up? Blessings upon you. I didn't do that. I was just Phil. I was scared. So anyways, so I got the call. She was fine. And then my body just like kind of flushed and I started shaking. And then Paige was right there. So I hung up the phone and she's like, is mom okay? And I'm like, you heard the phone call. She's okay. She's like, okay. She's okay. Okay. Hugs, right? Prayers. Love you. And then it just took me hours to fall asleep. Hours. Like that was around 9:30. I know that's too late for a kid to go to bed, but here we are. And I didn't fall asleep till like 1:30. I mean, I watched some TV. Betsy, I don't know. Betsy Berry, are you here this morning? We need to talk about TV for a second, Betsy, if you're here. But I watched some TV and made some bread. Got some dough ready for making today. I got to bake today. Answered a bunch of texts, a bunch of messages, talked to Krista's mom a couple times, who's awesome. What a great lady. She's just really attentive and, it's her girl, little girl. She's a girl. She loves her, right? So she was great. And so we talked to family, did that whole thing and then just try to like decompress. Talked to Chris a little bit on the phone, messaged. She didn't want to talk on the phone. We messaged each other a little bit. And so then today happened. Get the kids out the door. Had a friend come and help get Paige ready because it's her first day in class. And so Krista was going to do her hair and take her picture out front. So we had a friend come and help do Paige's hair and took her picture out front for us. Takes a village, takes a village to have an Instagram ready life. I kid, but only a little bit. So got them out the door and then I was like, I need to go grocery shopping. We have nothing in the house. I mean, literally I was like, as you all know, I've been baking a lot of bread. I was literally like cutting pieces of bread and handing them to my kids and being like, and now you are having breakfast. It's ridiculous. It's not a way to live. I mean, bread's actually quite good for you. And that's what I had for breakfast was a hunk of bread with butter on it. But the kids are like, give me my fruity craps and whatnot. They want all this stuff. So, Lucky Charms and whatnot. So, and like I grew up in a house where you could never have the fun cereal. So I give my kids the fun cereal. Also, if you like just spend some time looking at the ingredient list and all of the nutritional values, I'm sure there's like something to be said that like it's really, really bad to feed your children Lucky Charms. But like the difference between Lucky Charms and some of the quote unquote healthy ones are not, it's negligible. And then you're like, well, then give them like the organic, Cascade Farm, whatevers. And here's the answer to that. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not criticizing people who do, mind you, but I'm not going to, right? That's the main thing I was going to say. So, man, I cannot. All right. So anyways, that's what happened. That's where we're at. I went to the grocery store and I almost broke down crying in the middle of the grocery store. And I almost had a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack, so I guess I shouldn't say that. I guess like people like they confuse them for heart attacks and stuff. That's never happened to me. But like I definitely like started to breathe a little heavy and couldn't remember for a second like where I was going. I mean, I knew I was at Kroger. I'm not like if you were like, what day is it? I'm like, well, I never know what it is during the pandemic. But I knew where I was, literally, Kroger. I knew what I was doing, literally shopping. I knew I had to be here at 11, that stuff. But just like I had this moment of just yeah, equilibrium shock. You just want your person to be okay, Like you just want your person to be okay. That's it. That's all you want. Like, you just want them to be okay. And like, I know it's not a big thing. Like the surgeries, I mean, I know it's a minor surgery. I know there are a lot worse things that could happen, but it's just been such a crazy time, right? And like this pandemic and this move that we made and our lives being the way that they are have really, like, we're working really hard, she and I, on learning 12 years in how to be married and how to take care of each other right and how to really build and forge this family. And so it's scary. It's scary. I'm not good with stuff like this. You know, or maybe I am. I don't know. How do you know? Paige has had several surgeries. Wesley's had surgery, all minor. Paige's were a little bit more extensive because of her cleft lip and palate, but still, like, compared to, like, we haven't had major health issues in our family. We've been very fortunate in that sense. But every time, and Krista had her gallbladder out, like I said, but every time there's a thing, it's just, I'm not good at it. Like Paige's last surgery was the worst day of my life. The surgery went well. They did exactly the thing they were supposed to do. And they did it well, and she recovered well. But I was a freaking mess. Just an absolute, the worst day. I felt like, and the time before that she'd had a surgery, I thought I had food poisoning. Talk about it. I was like throwing up all over the place. But everyone else was fine. We had gone to a Christmas party the night before, and everyone else was fine. So it really was, I was like, no, it's not nerves. It's not nerves. It was totally nerves. I was falling apart. I don't handle this stuff. So, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. I do have a lot of big feelings. I try to be honest about my big feelings. I always, you get mixed, you get like, it's complicated, how we share these things. It's complicated how we share these things, but I do want to, my part of my life in general is that I just to try to be honest about what's going on, and then people do with that what they need to, So thank you, Leslie. I am functioning at like this level. I might try to write something later that I need to write. And other than that, that's about the level I can function at, It's March 234th for the record. Oh my gosh. This thing. It does such a number on your head. Like, I was just telling that story and I was like, hey, like when I'm back, when Paige had her surgery when she was 3, is that how old she was? No, she was 11 months old. Her fourth surgery was at 11 months. I think that's right. And, I think it was her fourth surgery that was at about 11 months. And I was like, oh yeah, I went to that party the night before. Like, and now I'm like, who goes to parties? Who goes places and socializes with people? What are you, crazy? And whenever you see friends like on Facebook or Instagram or some other thing where they're at some party where they're all gathered around and acting normal, you're like, is that a throwback picture or are you people crazy? Can't say that. That's not nice. But you know what I mean, right? Like, you're like, what do you, I don't understand. We've been out to one restaurant in the last 7 months. We tried it. When things started to open back up, went to our favorite spot with the kids, and they did a good job. They did all the things they were supposed to do. It wasn't fun. I was anxious the whole time. And you don't know, because people aren't wearing their masks while they're eating and you're indoors. So yeah, it is true when you're watching something like, we were watching some movie from like the 80s. And we're like, look at how close they're standing to each other. Must be an old movie. Speaking of which, Clue is on Amazon Prime right now, and I want to watch it. I'm gonna watch it. Okay. Well, so that's my story. If you have any questions that are theologically related to it, like if you have any theological questions so that I can get back out of my heart and into my head for a minute, I'm glad to do that. Yeah, Knives Out was one of my 2 or 3 favorite movies was it last year or 10 years ago? I think Knives Out so Parasite came out last year, and that was like a top 10 of the decade level movie. Like that was visionary, right? Like I get it. Absolutely astounding. But then the movie that was meant the most to me of last year was Jojo Rabbit, which I've seen. I've only seen it once. I wish I'd watched it 20. If I was a teenager and that movie came out, I would have seen it 20 times by now. It's so weird when you grow up and you like all of a sudden have a sense of your own finitude and you don't like watch things 20 times anymore because you're like, there are other things, it turns out, But when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to watch that again. I would have watched Jojo Rabbit. If I had been in high school and that movie came out, I would have seen it a dozen times by now. I would have seen it 3 or 4 times in the theaters. And then Knives Out. Those are my 3 favorite of the year. Parasite, like I said, is like visionary next level stuff. But Knives Out and Jojo Rabbit were, I think, the most utterly enjoyable. Just absolute great. Hey, Hollis. Thank you for jumping in. How are you when you have to visit someone in the hospital as a priest? See, now this is a fascinating question to me anyway. I'm great in the hospital when it's not my family. Oh my gosh, I'm comfortable there. So when you go to be a priest or any kind of clergy in most denominations, including I believe in if you're going to be a Muslim cleric or a Jewish rabbi, that they will have you do something called clinical pastoral education, which is kind of, when you actually break it down, what it sounds like. You basically work as a pastor or chaplain in a hospital setting or clinical setting, right? Usually hospitals, they also have them in retirement communities and things like that, but it's usually hospitals. I worked at Washington Hospital Center in DC, which is one of 2 level 1 trauma units in the district. And so we had on-call hours and we'd go to emergencies. I saw guys, the skin and flesh of a guy's foot all the way off and just the bone. I saw people die. I saw all sorts of crazy stuff. And I was totally fine in that space. I actually had, there are people who can't do it. There are people who they do it, but they're just like barely surviving. After that clinical pastoral education ended, I got my certification. I kept going back and I get paid to do on calls once a week and spend the night. I'd basically do overnights at the hospital once a week as a chaplain in training, and would go to emergency calls. So and like the CPE people were like, maybe you'll want to do CPE, like teach this when you're older. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be you. But like, I was very comfortable. I'm very comfortable in a hospital in that sense. I will say it takes you have to get back acclimated. I mean, the best way to describe it, I don't know if it's the best way. The way I'll describe it is, how they talk, if you ever watch like football players talk about playing football, like they have to get reaccustomed each year to getting hit. Like the first hits are the worst. And after a while they get used to it and they remember. There's like muscle memory about how it all goes. And I guess that's true with any sport. Like your body has to remember. And so the first couple times are hard. So the first time in the hospital in a while is always a little bit iffy for me. But if I get into a rhythm where I'm going to the hospital regularly, it's totally fine. And I'm always glad to visit people in the hospital. I'm glad to sit in the waiting room. I'm glad to visit people pre-op, post-op. I have not visited anyone during op. But I'm glad. Well, that's not true because I've been in the waiting room with people during the operation. So deaths, births, last rites, first blessings, the whole bit, everything in between. I love that stuff. Oh, I love it. Sometimes I wish I could just go like hang out in the hospital with people who had to be there all day and be like, hey, you want to watch a TV together? We had a parishioner who was going through chemo, and he would let me know when his chemo appointments were. And I went and visited him during every chemo appointment. I loved that. I loved that. You don't enjoy seeing people in the hospital. So it's not an enjoyment thing, but it's such a joy. It's a different kind of joy, not enjoyment, but like the joy of intimacy of being able to share a space that you know that they've invited you in, and and they need someone there and you need to be there for them, and that need is met. I think I just love that. Does that make sense? Sounds like it makes sense. So anyways, yeah, I hold on, I'm gonna blow my nose. I'm gonna try to move away. Sorry, I got a little teary-eyed earlier, and the waterworks bring the snot. So, but when it's my family, I'm a disaster. That's pretty much the deal. Yeah. But yeah, like, so don't hesitate. Well, right now, Joyce is our primary hospital goer, as you know, and she's so great. Like I'm all right. Like I'm all right. But if you're in the hospital, having Joyce Keeshan show up, come on. Like, you know, you're going to be fine when Joyce shows up, right? Like, I'm all right. I'm good at my job, right? But like, man, Joyce Keeshan, she crushes it. So we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have her around. So if you have a hospital situation, God forbid, it'll probably be Joyce, but it also might be Melanie or me or even Gary. We've all got our special gifts, as it were. I think all four of us understand that as an important part of our job, and we're glad to do it. So you may see me there, but I guess my point was, don't like worry. Like, is Phil going to be a mess if he shows up at the hospital? Like, nah, I'm good there. I always try to hit the gift shop on the way out. If they and grab a candy bar or something. I don't know why. That's Pavlovian, you know. But if they have Pepsi, I won't go in that place. All right. When you interact with people in families, do you ever talk to people? When you interact with people in hospitals, do you ever talk to people who are disasters because their family is there? You mean, do I just talk to? I'm confused by your question. Help me out. Like that, the family's presence is what's making people flip out a little bit. Is that what you mean? I will tell you while you're answering that, or while you're clarifying, I will tell you that when my dad was in a coma at one point, we all flew back to Maine because we weren't sure what was going to happen. And we were all in California, and we all flew back, and there were too many people in there with him, and people were all fussing. And so the ICU nurse kicked everybody out, and it was awesome. I was really proud of her. But I came back in anyway by myself. I was 24, I think, 25. I was 24. And we sent everybody home. She sent everybody home. Get out. He can't understand. He can't, you're making him agitated. He can't respond to you. And you're too loud. Like, you need to go. It's best for him. So we all went back to the house, which was his house. So we were all in the house, and I was like, I got to go back to the hospital. And they're like, they're not going to let you in. And I was like, that's not my problem. I gotta see him. And so like I went back. You'll love this. This was pre-priest days, but post religious awakening. So it was after my adult re-entry into the Christianity. And I came back and I had my Bible. Who's gonna mess with the boy with a Bible? And I just came in and I said, I would just like to sit in the room and read my Bible. Like, earnest as the day is long. I'd like to sit here quietly. I won't talk to anybody, and no one else is coming. They're all gone. I would like to sit near my dad and read. And the same lady, her name was Tam. Tam goes, okay. And so for the rest of the time that he was in the coma, I was allowed in and no one else was. Sometimes we'd let people in like one or two at a time, but like I was the one, because I was like, I have shown that I can behave myself. Please let me in this room. And that's another thing. I'm calm if I'm with them, right? So when Paige gets out of the surgery, like she was in the last her surgery she had, she was in the hospital for 2.5 days, and I wouldn't leave. Like I just slept there and stayed there the whole time. Krista could go home, breathe, shower. I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm fine, actually. And I was, so long as I'm with them. So when I was with Dad, I was fine. But when they take them away behind the doors, that's the part that I have a hard time with. Do you talk to just the patients or people like it? Oh, I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to anybody. And so like, it depends on the situation, right? So when I was doing chaplaincy, I used to talk to the nurses and doctors a lot because these chaplains would always talk to the patients and the families when the families were there and needed to be talked to. But these nurses and doctors were in and out every day, and who talked to them? So I got to know the nurses really well, and it did make me think about like what I want to do hospital chaplaincy, thinking about being a chaplain for the staff. That's more interesting in some ways, or was in the moment, I should say. But yeah, I absolutely dealt with families. But people would die. I worked on, I think it was New Year's Eve. I worked on New Year's Eve, or was it Halloween? I worked on a holiday. I used to work the holidays because they were busier. And then I wouldn't be, because it's weird when you go to do on calls and you're overnight at the hospital and you get like one call at 2 a.m. and that's the only thing you do, or you don't get any, and it's like, what am I doing here? I was still learning. I'm still learning how to not be busy. So I was like, I should do something, but I need to get over that. But so I remember this kid got brought in, gunshot wound, and he was dead when he got there, but they worked on him for a little bit. And then the family came in, and I was the one who had to meet the family. Man, I wasn't even ordained yet. I was just some kid. But I was the one who had to meet the family and bring them to see the body of their boy. And there's been a couple situations like that where people died and I was the one to be with the family. Part of the reason that you want to have a chaplain that has a good relationship with the doctors and the nurses is the doctors and the nurses are really good at crowd management oftentimes, but they're also not trained for the things that we're trained for, just like we're not trained for what they're trained for. And it's a really good division of labor if they know they can count on you, but they have to know you and trust you. So once they got the trust of the nurses in a unit, then they would come talk to me and say, I'd like you to check with this person, or if you don't do that, you don't know what's going on. And so I wanted to get so you pastor to them to some degree, or you are their chaplain, whatever language you want to use, you're there for them. And then they get to know you. And then when you show up, they're like, I need you to go check on the person over in room, 42 or whatever. Or the mom is in the waiting room and then we had an issue. You get utilized better if you actually develop a relationship with the professionals there, right? So, and you have physicians that are really talented technicians, surgeons and otherwise, maybe brilliant minds, but who aren't necessarily phenomenal in terms of their bedside manner. We know that. That's not news. And that's not to disparage anybody. We all have different gifts. So there's a place for people like me in those spaces. You just have to figure out, it's a vocation, I think, so, but I really quite liked that work. I've kind of wherever you put me, I'm very rarely miserable when I'm getting to do the job. Pretty rare. I don't know that y'all have ever seen me miserable, at least not in my work. The last 8 months have been the most painful of my life, working wise. The last year has probably been the most difficult of my adult life. Not probably, easily the most difficult of my adult life the last year. Probably yours too, right? For many of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you. But from a vocational standpoint, it's just been incredibly rough to try to figure out how to keep us all in community and caring for one another and loving one another. And then making sure that people are both connected, but also not like, we don't want to be overbearing. And then like, giving people opportunities for worship, but like knowing not everyone's going to take it because it's different. Watching it on TV or whatever is on your computer is different than going in. I know. And feeling a sense of like, we're not like, at least our diocese is all on the same page, but like knowing nationally that our country's not all on the same page about how to behave around this. That's tough. That's hard. We can't even really say we're all in it together. Our church can say that, I think, but you know what I mean? It's not the same. So that part's hard. And now we're in the fundraising part of the season. So I'm like trying to remind people that their money is, helps make this place go. We have a lot of staff that do like man, if you gave me a staff list and I could just spend a half hour on each person telling you the ways that they bless people, like absolutely bless people from top to bottom, and the way that they help facilitate community in the most isolated time of our lives. But because people aren't here on a Sunday, I've heard more than one person be like, so like, what are you guys doing? How are you keeping busy? And they're busy because they're like trying to reinvent church. Like our staff is trying to reinvent church, right? Participating in this resurrection in some ways. And so I'm in that place of trying to raise money, which is also one of my jobs, right? Going to hospitals, preaching sermons, talking on Facebook and YouTube, and raising money. Teaching Bible studies. It's an interesting gig, isn't it? So sorry if I'm a little tender today. So I keep pausing, but there's a lot going on in my heart. Yeah, I don't always feel like I've been an adult for very long either, but then I turn out I'm 41 and it's like, yeah, then I'm, it turns out. I was talking to a friend of mine from high school and I was like, hey, how's so-and-so doing? I hadn't talked to them in 25 years. And then I was like, 25 years? Oh my gosh. How can I'm old. Okay. Hollis, Chris and Robert are doing so well. First of all, Chris is keeping this place together. He is amazing. He's also picking up a bunch of odd jobs and things around. Like he's helped us a lot with our move when we moved and stuff. And don't worry, I paid him separately for that. It wasn't church funds doing that. But he's just awesome. Like this place, we had a leak in my roof, in my ceiling yesterday. I was actually here. I come in now like 3 or 4 times a week, not for the whole day, just for little bits. Close my door and kind of work for a little bit and then go back at home. I keep seeing my hat. Like there's nothing I own that doesn't have dough or flour on it now. It's my whole thing. Anyways, so I'm sitting here the other day and I'm on a phone call. I get off the phone and I'm like, yesterday it was raining, right? And I'm like, and I don't see anything dripping, but I can hear it. So we've got those drop panel ceilings. So it was going from the roof and dropping doop, 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 doop inside. So I get up on a chair, and like put my hand up and feel it. I'm like, yeah, that's water. So Chris was here. He had the thing taken care of, and like within the hour, he had a bucket and did all the stuff, but then it was all fixed within an hour. And there's stuff like that. There's a constant maintenance of the place, as you might imagine. And the preschool's back in action. So he's doing extra cleaning there because they have extra precautions and stuff. And Robert's been, he's part-time, and he's got another job, which is good, but he's doing well. I see him not as much, but I do see him every once in a while. So here's what's really cool. You'll like this, right? So with Chris and Robert. So one of them is there on Sundays for our recording. And both of them like really, they don't have to be in the back of the church, right? They don't have to be there, but they always come and stand when we stand and sit when we sit and participate. And neither of them, this isn't their tradition. Like, I don't think either of them would say I'm an Episcopalian, but like, they're so part of the community. They're so part of us now, and we're part of them. And So they're doing well. Thank you for asking. They're special guys. They're really part of the Redeemer community. Yeah, literally, you could just name a name and then I'll just talk about them for 20 minutes. But Chris makes this place go, and Robert's a phenomenal assistant to him. They work really well together. It's good stuff. It really is. So, I'm going to get theological for a second. You haven't asked me any questions directly related to theology, but I'm going to go for it anyway. It's related to the things we've been talking about in terms of my worry and stress and stuff like that. Little tickle. I think it'd be really easy for us to believe that if we had the right kind of faith, that we wouldn't feel anxiety or nervousness. I don't know what's pushed us to think like that as people. It's really easy, convenient to blame a specific strand of Christianity for that, but I don't know that that's true. I don't know. But like this idea that there should never be a time that you're afraid, or there should never be a time when you are, upset or anxious. I'm in psychoanalysis, and the thing about psychoanalysis is what you're really doing is just talking and talking and talking and talking. He doesn't ask too many questions. It's mostly just me talking. But you uncover things that you had not been, some things that are right on top of your mind, but other things come up, associations and things. Freud believed that, as far as I understand it, someone could correct me, that the work of psychoanalysis was this revelatory work, the uncovering of things that you had basically stuffed down. And when you stuff things down and don't integrate them and sublimate them into your consciousness, then if they're not appropriately integrated, then it's like anything. And then your body doesn't, and your mind this is where dysfunction comes from. Our not processing the things. And so I'm doing that work of learning how to talk through and process these things. And that's much healthier. It's like some, I bring that up for theological reasons, to say, if we're taught whenever we're afraid or whenever we're anxious or whenever we're worried, you shouldn't feel those things or you're not faithful, then we're taught to be ashamed of our fear, ashamed of our anxiety, ashamed of our worries. And then we're discouraged from acknowledging they're there. And there are times when Jesus says things like, hey, don't worry, But I don't think that means that if you worry, you're somehow being unfaithful to God or disobeying Jesus. I think he's trying to set the table for us to eat at. Jesus is trying to set the table so we can eat. And he wants us to know that the place where we are nourished by God worry will not help. Worry is not the way forward. But that doesn't mean that worrying is a sign that it's not a sign of lack of faith. Or even if it is a sign of lack of faith, I don't think that's how faith works. Faith is, so like the whole don't be afraid thing. It's no, be afraid, do it anyway, right? Do the thing while being afraid. Bravery is not lack of fear. Bravery is the action that you do while being afraid. So I just want us to understand that there is a place for these feelings in our spiritual life, that we don't have to be ashamed of them or feel like somehow that means that we are less than, or that we're not somehow appropriately in relationship with God. So that's a double loss. Not only are you feeling the fear or uncertainty, but then you're feeling bad for feeling the fear and uncertainty. And that is what, when Jesus says to the Pharisees, you place on them too great a burden for them to bear. That's the language I think of. That's too great a burden of us to bear, to not only feel the fear and anxiety, but then to feel shame for being anxious and afraid. That doesn't sound right to me. So I want us to have a place. So yesterday we were having a conversation before any of this went down, before any of my story went down. We were having a conversation about some decisions that I'm making for our staff and for like the year ahead, and what some things that we want to do for Advent and what that'll look like. And one of our staff was like, this thing that we want to do is the right thing to do, but I'm a little nervous about how people will receive it. And my first instinct was to say like, well, don't be nervous, right? Don't be nervous. You don't need to be nervous. People will be fine. I didn't say that. I started to say that. And then I stopped and I said, you know what? If you need to be nervous about that, be nervous about that. Like, be a little nervous if you need to be. I get it. It's nerve-wracking. There's uncertainty in the air. We want to present some cool things, but we don't know how they'll be received by y'all. Makes sense for us to be nervous about that. I'm nervous every single time I preach. I'm nervous before I come on here. I'm not saying the nervousness is inherently good. I am saying that nervousness oftentimes accompanies vulnerability and nervousness, because you're going to put yourself out there. And we create content and make decisions for this church similarly to the way that I run this forum or preach, which is, I hope, from a place of authenticity and a desire to really be generative and creative in the world. And that creates a space of vulnerability. It just does. Which means you're going to be nervous sometimes. I think that's part of the deal. So I think I just want to create, like, from a theological standpoint, I want to say that, like, when Jesus says don't worry, I don't think he means like that it's bad when you worry, like there's something wrong with you. I think he's trying to set the table for a more macro way of viewing the world. That worry is not the thing that gets it accomplished. That anxiety is not the thing that solves the problem. And that you understand somewhere in your being that the one who made you is abundant and loves you abundantly. That the plans that God has for you are plans for your healing and recovery, for your connection to God. That even if Krista had died on the operating table, that she would be in the heart and life and economy of God. Even if I do, as I said to my kid really dumbly, get hit by a car on the way out the door, that is not evidence of no God, or that my story is a tragedy, that there's things that the work that God is doing in the world and in life can encompass our grief and our sorrow and our fear and our uncertainty and even the bad things that happen to us. God's work can encompass all of that and still be redemptive, still be about life and reconciliation. This is where theology can help, because it can give you an opportunity to step back and look at the big picture, see the story that God is telling. And the story that God is telling is one of love, is one of abiding presence and faithfulness. I cannot tell you how meaningful it was within minutes of posting this thing on Facebook, which is my preferred social media outlet. Within minutes of posting it on Facebook, I had literal hundreds of responses, offering prayers and people wanting to help and all that. And there's so much love there. And I will tell you, I'm not sure we needed a hospital trip in our lives this week. But we did need that outpouring of love, actually. We needed that. It was actually really important to us. We didn't know it, but it was really important to us this week. Not just for that, but just overall. Like, it's been a tough week in the Duvall, in Casa Duvall. And this was the crappy capper to it. But the love that surrounds us and makes us feel cared for is immense. And I'll take that. So I'm just thinking in terms of how we acknowledge both the fear and the sorrow and the anxiety and the grief and the joy and the connection and the hope and just the affection. Affection's a pretty great thing, isn't it? Thank you, Betsy. Betsy, we got to talk. Okay, I got 4 minutes left, and Betsy and I have to have a very serious conversation. All right, listen. So a few years back, Betsy found out that I was watching Game of Thrones. And she was like, would I like it? And I was like, I don't know if you'd like Game of Thrones. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm Betsy's priest. You know, she's this nice old lady, right, Betsy? My parishioner. I'm going to get her onto like the most violent show in the history of television with dragons and copious amounts of gore and nudity and foul language. And I'm like, you know, Betsy, there's a lot of, and I said to her, I said, there's a lot of this stuff in this show. So I'm not going to tell you to watch it. I'm going to say, if those things are your cup of tea or they don't bother you, it's a very well-made television show. But it's a big caveat there, right? Well, how many times have you watched the series now, Betsy? Like 3 times? She loves it, right? So she loves Game of Thrones. So now she's looking for more shows. I love you. You're so great. So now she's looking for new shows to watch because we're stuck. She's home alone. She does have two new cats, and she's one of the people, Betsy, you're one of the people who has taken the most advantage of the different kinds of ways that we connect remotely and have really stayed connected to your community during this difficult time through Bible study, through worship on Sunday and coffee hour, and any ways that you can. You've done a really wonderful job of just kind of being a part of things. And in some ways, I feel like our relationship has grown during this time. And so you're awesome. Don't go where? What did I do wrong? Which thing did I mess up? Anyways, so Betsy and I were talking about a show to watch, and I told her about this show that I was going to start watching, or I'd watched 1 episode of, called Luther on Amazon Prime. And so listen, I am going to go there, but just for a second. So I was like, well, I'm going to try this show out. It's apparently very good. I've seen 1 episode. It's, it's a murder mystery. Luther's the detective. I love the actor, Idris Elba. Okay. This show is so violent and so scary. It is terrifying. And it's mostly about this detective who's like solving the most disturbing serial killer cases imaginable. And Betsy's watched the first season. Betsy, don't watch anymore, please. Please. I just finished 3rd season last night, and I was by myself and stressed out about this thing. I was so horrified. I was so scared. I had to look away a couple times. It's a very well-made show, and I love this actor very much. And it doesn't actually feel like wrong to me like the show, but it's not it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I was just like, well, Betsy, if you're going to watch it with the knowledge that your priest has said, like, please don't watch it. It's really scary. But like, I just felt like I'm watching this show and I'm like, what have I done to my friend Betsy? I'm so sorry. I am a chicken. I'm a big chicken. Oh my gosh. I'm a big chicken. No, it's right. Nobody tells Betsy what not to do. I did tell Betsy to watch Schitt's Creek, but she's already seen it. And if you haven't seen The Good Place, Betsy, it's all on Netflix now. And it is just astonishing. Maybe the best show, one of the best shows of the last decade. Just an absolutely astonishing sitcom. There are other things, but we need a new uplifting, like Schitt's Creek, Good Place kind of show. And I don't know what that's going to be yet. We'll see. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm now over time. I was going to be under time. And then we talked about TV, which I could talk about endlessly. I was going to tell you musically. Oh, so one of the best country singers of right now is a guy named Sturgill Simpson. And he's really into sort of like alt country. Like he kind of does a different angle on country, but he's got this real old school Waylon Jennings-like voice. So he had an album out about 5 years ago or so called Sailor's Guide to Earth. It's just a beautiful, gorgeous album from beginning to end. But he put out an album recently that's just all bluegrass versions of all his songs. And he's singing, but with like a bluegrass backing. Oh man, if you like bluegrass even a little bit, or if you like Sturgill Simpson even a little bit, check out this album. I think it's called like the Grass Cutting Sessions Volume 1 or something like that. It is so good. Thank you all. Thank you for your love and support today. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for the texts and the messages. Thank you for the love and the prayers for Krista. She is healing well. She will likely not be home till tonight or even tomorrow morning. They said that her appendix was in pretty bad shape. One more day or two, it would have ruptured, they said. So, but she is okay and getting better. So thank you and keep the prayers up. Hollis, so awesome you showed up today. Awesome. Yeah, this is way better than work. Oh, this is my job, but it's way better than work for you. I hope you'll join us again. You are a gift. Hollis, you're awesome. And I miss you guys. I miss you and Mark. I miss the crew. So please give all the Bass Boys my love. When you're watching this, thanks for being here. We'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat YouTube station, and tell a friend. All right. And join me. Throw me some questions. Let's get back to work. All right. I'll talk to you. Much love. Bye now.